As the series Band of Brothers concludes, viewers are told that Dick Winters accepted his friend Lewis Nixon's offer to work at Nixon Nitration Works in New Jersey after the war. What's far less widely known, however, is why Winters left the company roughly 6 years later. His time at Nixon Nitration Works took a heavy toll, culminating in a tense confrontation that would change everything. Within 2 weeks of returning from Europe in the fall of 1945, 27-year-old Dick Winters traveled to New York City to meet Lewis Nixon's father, Stanhope Nixon. During a relatively informal interview, Stanhope offered him a position at the family business, which manufactured cellulose nitrate, a type of plastic that had primarily been used to produce motion picture film. Winters accepted the role, and by January 1946, he was the personnel manager, working alongside his best friend Lewis Nixon. Though his new position sounded promising, Winters quickly realized the company faced internal challenges. Lewis Nixon, for instance, rarely spent time at the plant. He would show up once or twice a week merely to collect his paycheck and mail. Winters, concerned about the family's presence in daily operations, once asked, "Nye, why in the hell don't you take a job around here? There's a lot to do. They can use you. Someone from the family should be here." Nixon's father, Stanhope, was also largely absent. Recently divorced and remarried, he spent winters in Florida and only visited the plant for about 6 weeks in the spring before retreating to his summer home in New England. The company's day-to-day operations were overseen by the president, Charlie Schuster. Lewis Nixon responded to Winters with a gentle smile, explaining, "If I take a job, I'm taking work from somebody else, and that would bother my conscience." Winters quickly realized that Lewis had retained much of his military persona in civilian life, a brilliant communicator and tactical mind, yet distracted by his drinking, leaving mundane administrative matters to subordinates. Winters reflected on their post-war friendship, telling biographer Larry Alexander, "Nixon and I always remained good friends, but our relationship after the war was tough. Visiting him was to watch him get drunk. That's no fun when you're sober, so I'd sit there until I got tired. Then I'd go to bed. That was the only thing I could do." By the end of the 1940s, the plastics industry was shifting. Cellulose nitrate, though flexible, was highly flammable, and manufacturers were transitioning to safer alternatives like acetate. Nixon Nitration Works struggled to adapt, and the company faced layoffs. As personnel manager, Winters bore the heavy responsibility of informing employees they were being let go. He recounted that his presence often made employees visibly nervous, a reality he had to manage professionally. After Charlie Schuster was let go, Winters was promoted to plant manager, which increased the pressure as Stanhope continued to send directives from afar, remaining largely disconnected from daily operations. Stanhope's alcoholism compounded these difficulties, a trait he had passed down to his son. One day, Winters received a panicked call from Stanhope's housekeeper, Lillian, with whom the elder Nixon was involved romantically. She insisted that only Winters could intervene. Following her instructions, he went to Stanhope's home in New Jersey. The door was ajar, and upon entering, Winters found Stanhope half-dressed, clearly intoxicated, and pointing a pistol at him. Winters slowly approached, keeping his eyes on the gun, and gently removed it from his boss's hand. He discovered the revolver was unloaded. Stanhope had apparently been firing at ducks on his porch. Despite the levity he tried to convey afterward, Winters realized this was the breaking point. He understood he needed to leave the company for his own safety and sanity. At the time, Winters had a wife and a 1-year-old son, so leaving without another opportunity wasn't feasible. Fortunately, the Army recalled him to active duty for Korea, giving him an excuse to step away from Nixon Nitration Works without causing undue strain on his friendship with Lewis Nixon. He served briefly as a regimental planning and training officer at Fort Dix in New Jersey, but ultimately opted to resign before deployment, having reached his limit with military service and conflict. In September 1952, Winters attempted to return to Nixon Nitration Works, but by then, his position had been filled. To support him during the transition, Lewis Nixon gave him 6 months' pay and transferred ownership of the company car. Winters soon found a new role as a production supervisor at Johnson & Johnson in New Jersey. Eventually, he returned to Pennsylvania, purchasing a 300-acre farm in Lebanon County, where he and his wife Ethel raised their 2 children, Tim and Jill. He also launched a successful livestock feed business. Despite the challenges and tension of his years at Nixon Nitration Works, Winters' time there was not without positive aspects. It was during this period that he met Ethel at a restaurant near the train station where he commuted to work. More importantly, it allowed him to maintain a close friendship with Lewis Nixon, someone who shared the experiences of combat and could relate to the difficulties of returning home. This bond, forged during the war, offered Winters emotional support that many veterans lacked, particularly those dealing with what we now understand as PTSD. Dick Winters and Lewis Nixon remained close until Nixon's passing in 1995 from complications of diabetes. Their friendship endured decades of post-war life, careers, and personal challenges, reflecting a bond shaped by shared hardships and mutual respect. Winters' experience at Nixon Nitration Works illustrates the sometimes overlooked struggles veterans faced when transitioning to civilian life, highlighting both the personal and professional pressures that followed the war. Ultimately, Winters' story is not just about survival in wartime or post-war employment. It's about navigating complex friendships, professional challenges, and personal growth. His time at Nixon Nitration Works tested his patience, courage, and resolve, but it also helped him build a life with his family and retain a lifelong connection to his closest friend. While the confrontation with Stanhope Nixon marked a dramatic turning point, it also opened the door to new opportunities from military service to entrepreneurship, allowing Winters to leave a lasting legacy both in business and in personal relationships. The story of Dick Winters' post-war years offers a fascinating lens into the challenges faced by returning soldiers and the enduring power of friendship forged under fire. From his early days at Nixon Nitration Works to building a successful farm and business, his life exemplifies resilience, prudence, and loyalty. For anyone interested in the untold stories of World War II veterans and the complexity of life after combat, Winters' experience provides insight into how extraordinary individuals navigate both ordinary and extraordinary challenges, leaving a profound mark on history and the people around them.